What is up, guys? I'm Celeste Williams, aka TheSwolefessor, here to educate you on health, fitness, social well-being. And today, guys, I'm going to be answering the 5 most common questions that I get about calisthenic training. So what brought this about is that, as many of you may know, I did calisthenic training from the age of 11 to 17, calisthenics being body weight only movements, so push-ups, dips, pull-ups, variations of pull-ups and push-ups, a lot of core work, body weight squats, standing calf raises on stairs, anything that I could do with just body weight resistance alone. I did that from age 11 to 17. Then when I turned 17, I started incorporating weight training along with my calisthenics, and now I do both, and I'm currently 23. So I've been doing calisthenics for 12 years and weight training for 6 years. And with that, since starting up my channel and showing you guys how I incorporate the two together and doing videos over the topic, I've gotten a lot of questions over the topic. I do mean a lot, but the 5 that I'm about to go over today are the most common questions that I often get. I want to go over these because I feel like it's going to help clear the air around like this topic as a whole, as far as like how calisthenics work, the benefit of it, if you should just do calisthenics only, or like before you get into weight training, if you can start both at the same time. So just going to be addressing all of that. So let's get right into it. So the first most common question that I get when it comes to calisthenics is, how do you progress on them? Like, if you don't want to get into weighted pull-ups and weighted dips, I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that, because those are both great movements. But if you only want to use like body weight, how do you progress? And the answer, guys, is simply you have to continuously increase the volume through reps and sets. Meaning, let's say you start off where you can get 3 sets of 10 push-ups. Then the only thing you can do to progress from that, you can do 4 sets of 10 push-ups. You can do 3 sets of 11 push-ups. Or if you only get just 11 on that first set, then get 10 on the second, 10 on the third, and just build the reps up. You have to either add volume somehow, because once again, the whole concept of progressive overload is doing a little bit more than what you did last time. Your body's only going to grow from the same stimulus for about 3 weeks due to the biological law of accommodation. So therefore, if you're only using your body weight and your body weight resistance pretty much stays constant, you're going to have to consistently add more volume through reps and working sets. Now, with that being said, understand that if you're a beginner and you start to do resistance training, right, through just your body weight calisthenics alone, you start doing push-ups, pull-ups, core work, body weight squats, hanging leg raises, all that good jazz. Well, the reality is that you are going to build muscle, so your body will get a little bit heavier. So that could be a form of progressive overload as well, in the sense of, let's say you start off weighing about 120 pounds and you can do 3 sets of 10 pull-ups, and then you get to 125 pounds and you do 3 sets of 10 pull-ups. That's still technically a form of progressive overload. But that is one of the things about calisthenics, guys, that is a limiting factor of it, is the fact that it's a lot harder to manipulate resistance, because you can't just add and take away 5 pounds from your body weight whenever you want, right? Whereas with something like a barbell machine, you can load weight on there, manipulate the resistance as you see fit. So that's the most common question I get, guys, for number 1, is that how do you progress in calisthenics if you're only using your body weight? It's really simple. You just keep increasing the reps, keep increasing the volume. Second most common question that I get is, can I do calisthenics every day if it's body weight only? So not so much doing weighted pull-ups or weighted dips every day, but can I do push-ups daily? Can I do pull-ups daily? Can I do, ab work daily, body weight squats, lunges, things like that? Can I do that daily? Is that different from like, weight training where you want to rest muscle groups, things like that? And the answer is, guys, yes, you can, but once again, it's all about how you go about it. So for me, when I first started off just doing calisthenics only, I did full body calisthenics, right? So I would come in, do different areas of push-ups, pull-ups, body weight squats, body weight walking lunges, core work, things like that. And I would work out every other day. So, the same concept that most people do with full bodies, you come in, you work out every other day. But as I got stronger, as I got used to the stimulus, my body became more adapted to bodyweight training. I got to the point where I was doing it daily. I would maybe take, the weekend off or rest on Sundays, but I would go Monday through Fridays doing calisthenic work. So push-ups, pull-ups, etc. And I would just kind of change the variations each day, or maybe change like how I would go about it. Like on one day, maybe I would just do, all right, 5 sets of as many as I can. Then maybe the next day it would just be like, okay, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. So I would change up the variables, things like that. 1, just to keep it fun, and 2, so that I'm not just putting my body through the exact same thing every single day, even though it's all bodyweight training. But the reality is, yes, guys, you can, for the mere fact that, once again, your resistance manipulation is going to be different. The reason that you don't want to lift weights every single day for the same muscle group, even though it can be programmed correctly, as I said before, guys, I have done squat every day. In the past, I've done it twice. So there are ways that you can program things to where you can perform the same lift every day and still get good benefits and results from it. You have to remember, it's all about recovery. That's the main thing, guys. It's not so much how much work you're doing, it's are you doing enough work to stimulate growth but that you can still recover from. And with your body weight, that's a lot easier to do, because even though you're increasing the volume, you know, through reps and sets, the reality is if you're just gradually doing a little bit more each day or even weekly, let's say that you're just gonna do 5 sets of each thing for like, let's say you do 5 sets of 20 of each thing, right? And you do that for 1 week, and then the next week you just bump it up to 5 sets of 21, and you do that like, you know, Monday through Friday, every day of each week. Even though yes, you're training every day, because the resistance pretty much stays constant, because once again, you're not gonna gain 5-10 pounds in your body just instantly like that. It's pretty easy to work with that, because yes, your reps are increasing gradually, but it's not such a huge increase. It's not like you're going from like, okay, I was doing sets of 10 to sets of 50 where you're just gonna completely shock your body. If you're just gradually building up the reps or the sets in that way, and you work out Monday through Friday, then it's definitely doable. You can definitely do calisthenics on a daily basis, especially when you do things like, okay, well, one day I'm gonna do like standard push-ups, the next diamond push-ups, and then maybe like wire push-ups. One day I'll do pull-ups, the next I'll do chin-ups, things like that. Or even if you're doing the exact same thing every day, once again, if that progress is very gradual and you're still making sure that you're like, you know, eating, sleeping like that, and you can recover from it, then it's definitely doable, because it's way easier to recover from just body weight training than it is from heavy loads on weight training. And that's the reason why people are able to do that. That's why like people in the military or people who play sports are able to do like push-ups daily, pull-ups daily, and grow from BOK, because once again, it's just a lot easier to recover from. And that's the thing that people get confused. People are like, but it's still a form of resistance training, so how can you do it daily? Well, once again, you can do weight resistance training daily too, but it's all about how you set it up and if you're able to recover from it. So simply put, the answer is yes. If you know what you're doing and how to go about it, which really with bodyweight is way easier than weight training, yes, you can train calisthenics daily. Third most common question that I often get is, can I build a decent physique using calisthenics alone? Like just calisthenics, no weight training at all whatsoever? And the answer is, it depends on what you consider to be a decent physique. If you're somebody where you just want to be like, you know, you look like you have a nice athletic muscular frame, you're pretty lean, and in some cases it won't be lean, like depending on your structure and body type, some guys blow up. Like I don't know if you guys have seen people like bar stars, but some guys, just based off how they're built, they're just like, they blow up off calisthenic work. And so, but the point is, like, if you're just happy with a nice athletic build, then as far as everybody's concerned, yes, I think you can have a very excellent physique using calisthenics alone. Now, it gets a little bit harder in the leg development, just because, you know, bodyweight squats and even like, you know, bodyweight lunges and pistol squats are only gonna get you so far, just because the legs respond really, really well to weight, to like moving weights being loaded onto them, right? Like with your upper body, when you're doing enough, like, you know, push-ups, pull-ups, chin-ups, volume and things like that, then yeah, you can get pretty good development, like, you know, your chest, your back, your arms, your core, etc. for sure. Even if you're not gonna get quite as big as what you could if you added some weight in there, if you started doing like, you know, weighted pull-ups, weighted dips, then even if you're only using your body weight, yes, you could still grow well off of that. And even more so if you do incorporate weighted pull-ups, weighted dips, yes, I think you can build a fantastic upper body using calisthenics alone, because I've always said, weighted pull-ups and dips are kind of like the squat and deadlifts of the upper body, because as I've mentioned in the past, squats and deadlifts are calisthenic in nature as well. Why? Because the whole point of calisthenics is it's kind of like gymnastics. You're not just moving weight, you're moving your body through space. Well, that's what you're doing with a squat. A bodyweight squat is a calisthenic movement. So a barbell squat is still calisthenic in nature, you're just adding weight to it. It's no different than doing a weighted dip or weighted pull-up. Or the same thing with deadlifts, which is why those two movements are so effective for building up the lower body. But if you're only doing bodyweight squats only, bodyweight lunges and pistol squats, it's really hard to just maximize the growth potential in your legs, just because they're already used to carrying your body weight, you know, on the daily. You can definitely incorporate things like box jumps and sprints, and that will help. But once again, even though I think you can have a very decent upper body, unless you just have fantastic genetics where your legs blow up really easily, you may not have the best looking legs when you're doing calisthenics. I know that I, for myself, definitely, and granted, I was only 17 when I went from just calisthenics to lifting only, so who's to say what I would look like now if I only stuck with calisthenics alone? But the reality is, I know one thing for sure, is that my legs would not be where they are right now, and that without weight training, just because how my genetics are, my legs would not be what I consider to be like, you know, decent, or like decent legs on a physique, especially in comparison to my upper body. And just for those of you who are curious, I have it on Instagram, but you know what, I'll put it on screen right now. And that's just a little transformation. The one picture is from 6 years ago, right? When I, you know, went from calisthenics only to calisthenics and weight training, so right before I got into lifting weights, and then the other picture is from like a week or so ago. So that kind of shows you the progression I made by adding weight training into it. But of course, part of that growth comes from the fact that, you know, going from being 17 years old to 23, there's going to be just natural muscular maturity and growth regardless of resistance training anyway. But that's kind of give you guys sort of an idea of like, you know, hey, I was only 17, but you know, chest was still looking pretty built, everything was looking pretty decent as far as like, you know, only doing calisthenics for those first initial 6 years. But anyway, yeah, so that's the answer in my opinion for, hey, can you build a good, decent physique with calisthenics alone? A lot of it kind of depends on your genetics. As far as your upper body, I want to say yes. The majority of people will be able to build a decent physique. You may not be the biggest guy, but you'll look decent without a shirt. You'll look, you know, pretty cut up, everything like that. Leg development, not so much. Fourth most common question that I often get is, should I do calisthenics before I lift weights? Or should I do them both at the same time? Does it depend on how old I am? Things like that. And the answer is, guys, it kind of really does depend, but I'll try to make this as specific as I can. So a lot of people ask the question about like, hey, should I do calisthenics first because they're really young, right? Like they'll hear that I started at age 11, they're like, well, does that mean that I have to do calisthenics at a young age? Because they hear the myth that like, oh, you shouldn't lift weights at a certain age because it's gonna cause like damage to your bones and stunt your growth, all this nonsense. Pseudoscience has been completely disproven, guys. The reality is that you can start lifting weights as early as around like 7, 8 years old and not have to worry about any injuries or stunting your growth, or well, rather, the only way you would have to worry about stunting your growth is if you injure yourself, because before your placing in your bones close, you know, as we grow, those plates start to close. If you get injured before those close, then that can stunt your growth, that can cause problems. But the reality is, guys, you're far more likely to get hurt playing a sport at a young age, whether it's like basketball, football, track. You're at a high risk of injury doing something like that than you are lifting weights, so long as you're doing it with proper form. The thing is, parents who have their kids start at a young age need to understand the focus needs to be on proper form. You know, a standard rep and set scheme, so you know, like 3 sets of 10, 5 sets of 10, whatever, and just focusing on building up strength and building up, you know, muscle mass. Don't focus on like just going stupid heavy or maxing out. Like, don't worry about that, because that's gonna put that child at a greater risk for injury, obviously. But just make sure that they have a focus on, you know, form and building up good strength. So I say all that to say that in that case, if you still are so worried about the weights, it's a lot easier with calisthenics because you're less likely to hurt yourself doing a push-up than what you are doing a barbell bench press. So it's just an easy way to ease people into resistance training. It's gonna give them a nice, excellent base of strength. Like I told you guys before, my base of strength, especially on things like the bench press, was really, really good for my weight class starting off when I first started lifting weights. Like, because I did calisthenics for those 6 years before getting into weight training, even though yes, it's different movements, you're still building up those same muscles. So like I said, when I started lifting I want to say like around the end of my junior year, the beginning of my senior year in high school, my max on bench starting off was already around like 200 pounds. And I attribute so much of that just to building and developing my chest from, you know, all the push-ups and weighted push-ups and doing dips and just, you know, working my chest in various ways. So it just gave me a pretty good base as far as that. And then as far as my back, same thing. I already had a really strong back, so going right into weighted pull-ups, weighted dips, or like rowing motions felt really easy because of all those years of pull-ups. So yes, doing calisthenics first will definitely give you a greater base when you do start lifting weights. But that isn't to say that, okay, if somebody's like, you know, 15 years old and they start doing calisthenics and the other person is 15, they start doing weights, that the person who's doing calisthenics, when they start weights, is suddenly just gonna like be at the same place that the other guy is who started weights at the age of 15. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, relative to yourself, yes, if you do calisthenics first and build that base of strength, you'll probably have a better starting base when you lift weights. But that isn't to say that you shouldn't start lifting weights at that age too, because the reality is, if someone who's 15 and starts doing calisthenics and weight training, by the time they're 18, assuming they're training correctly, it's probably gonna be a lot stronger than somebody who just starts calisthenics at 15, then starts lifting weights when they're 18. You're not gonna get such a huge boost to where you're gonna be lifting way more than the person's already been lifting weights for 3 years. So in my honest opinion, it makes sense to do both. There's no reason not to do both. But if you're somebody who either like you can't get to a gym, or maybe you just can't afford a gym, or you just don't want to like go through the hassle of getting a bunch of equipment, then yeah, calisthenics is great to start off with. There's no reason not to, because you can already start building a base of strength, start working on some muscular development, and that way when you already lift weights, you'll be at a much better base than have not done anything at all. So that's pretty much my answer to that. If you're like really young, you just don't want to jump right into weights, go ahead and start with calisthenics first. Or if you just can't get to a gym, but outside of that, there's no reason not to start both at the same time and get the best of both worlds. Because I know that I've personally made the best gains by doing them together, combining them both, you know, calisthenics, weight training, weighted calisthenics. So that's pretty much my answer to that. And last but not least, the fifth most common question that I get is there something magical about calisthenic training? Like, will weighted dips and weighted pull-ups like just hit the body in a different way than say like a lat pull down will or the bench press will? And the answer is simply this, guys, and I've kind of explained this in past videos before. There's no such thing as any magical exercise. Any exercise that puts resistance on the muscle, any exercise that stimulates growth, even if it doesn't stimulate the best or most maximum growth, like even if it's like an exercise that's not great for that muscular development, if it stimulates any type of growth, so long as there is enough workload, like there's enough total volume, and you progressively overload, it will stimulate growth, it will stimulate hypertrophy. Now, an exercise, for example, that may not be optimal for chest growth but still works the chest, will still develop the chest. It may take longer for it to develop the chest at the same point that an exercise that's great for the chest, like the bench press, for example, will develop it, but over time it'll still develop it. It's just the rate of growth will probably be a lot slower than if you're using an exercise that, you know, activates the muscle by say 80% versus something that activates the muscle by only like, you know, 50%. So just for example, but what's great about calisthenics, guys, the reasons that they work so well, this doesn't just include like, you know, push-ups and this, like I said, the reason people see such great results with exercises like the deadlift, exercises like the squats, weighted pull-ups, weighted dips, like I said, they're all calisthenic in nature, is the fact that it hits the body a different type of way. You're going beyond just putting resistance on that specific muscle. You're also working a lot of stabilizer muscles, and you're moving your body through space, and that's what makes it different. It's like the difference between comparing maybe something like, you know, a bench press to just like a chest press machine is that yes, they'll both stimulate growth. It's just one may stimulate it at a slightly faster rate. It's the fact that when you involve things like stabilization, and then when you go to things like a weighted dip where you're moving your body through space, you're stimulating growth simply due to the fact that you're working more things at once. So you're basically getting more bang for your buck. So it's not to say that somebody can't fully stimulate their chest doing things like bench press or incline dumbbell press or chest press machines, not at all. It's just understanding that you get more benefits as a whole when you start doing things like dips. Like I said, like the pull-up is going to give you more benefits just lat pull down, because aside from the fact that it may hit those same muscles more effectively, it hits other muscles as well, a lot of the stabilizer muscles involved in the back, and the fact that even though there's not as much research on it as what we'd like, we have found, especially like if we look at some of the studies by the Russians, that there just seems to be a different type of effect on the body with moving your body through space. So once again, it's not to say that you can't maximize hypertrophy in all these other areas without calisthenics. It's just the fact that you'll probably do so a lot faster and more effectively if you also work with calisthenics. And that's why I always express to you guys to do the best of both worlds. Like if you just do one, then yeah, you get the pros of calisthenics, but you won't get the pros of being able to do heavy weight training. If you just do weight training, then yeah, you'll be able to like get big and strong, but you won't get a lot of the pros such as like, you know, stabilization and the core engagement that comes with things like calisthenics. So at the end of the day, that's why I always say that you should do both. But to answer the questions, yes, calisthenics do hit the body in a different way. It doesn't make them mandatory. It doesn't mean that you have to have them in order to stimulate maximum hypertrophy in your body, but it definitely will help you all in all. All right, guys, so that's it. Those are the 5 most common questions that I get about calisthenics. If you guys have any more, any clarification on any of the 5 that I went over, you already know, leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a comment down below. Let me know that you did. If you did not, leave a comment down below. Let me know what I can do better. Like the video, share, subscribe, keep it simple, specific, scientific. I'll catch y'all later.